I remember it all so clearly still. Ever since those days, it's been like reality is on fast forward, and I can't slow it down. I feel as though, if I blink, I might miss something important. So I travel, I record, I teach, and I fight. The world has seen more terrors in this short lifetime of mine than it has in some hundreds of years. But you, White Raven, are always at the start of it all. You were the beginning of my labors, some of which I still carry to this day. I know you, White Raven. I've known for years. You tried to live for someone else's legacy, only to set such grand things into motion that your demented mind couldn't hope to understand. I know you, White Raven, and now they will know too, as I pull the blood-soaked mask from your crazed face. Eorzea Darnis. Knowledge isn't always pretty. While history is riddled with fantastic places and people, it's equally filled with hatred and danger. It's easier to give in to temptation than it is to rise above your instincts, and it only takes one person to ruin something that many have worked toward. Anyone who lost something to the 7th Umbral Calamity all those years ago knows this truth all too well. And yet, despite the pain and loss, we must look into the eyes of these tragic events. It's only by observing and understanding the failures of those who came before that we might chart a better course for those who walk after. Gather around, my friends, as today we address one such person who nearly set the entire world ablaze. Today we'll be discussing the life of Nael von Darnus, or more specifically, the life of his younger sister, Eorzea Darnis. Our story begins in a time before Solus Zos Galvus crowned himself emperor, during a time when Garlemald was known as a republic. Their politics and policies, while much less domineering back then, were very organized. So much so that the imperial legions we're so familiar with technically already existed. Which brings our focus toward that of the 7th Legion. As the Republic of Garlemald became an ever-expanding empire, the 7th Legion was considered instrumental in the unification of the Ilsabard continent. The 7th was so ferocious with their tactics that some resistant cells would simply surrender upon realizing who their opponent was. The legatus in charge of this legion and its numerous accomplishments was none other than the head of House Darnus, the father of Nael and Eorzea. For his many deeds, their father was praised as a hero and patriot back home at the capital, but very few understood just how brutal this man's methods truly were. Eventually, the son of the 7th Legatus would serve under his father, as Nael took to the field of battle, leaving his little sister at home. Her name was Eorzea Darnis, and as the eldest daughter of this respected Garlean house, she was to inherit the many elegant secrets their family had gathered over the years. However, these secrets meant little to her when compared to the love she possessed for her older brother, Nael. Eorzea would devote her time studying the arts of medicine as she planned on becoming the finest chirurgeon that Garlemald had ever seen. All this so that she could enlist into the 7th Legion and support her older brother. She would keep him and his soldiers well, so they might all live long and healthy lives. But fate would play Eorzea a different hand than the one she dreamed, as everything she wished for would die in her arms. Tragedy struck as Nael was rushed back home after suffering a mortal wound in battle. To see her beloved brother in such a state ignited a fire within Eorzea as she did everything in her power to try and save him. She had learned so much about medicine during her studies, but it was steadily proving to not be enough. Nael coughed up blood and wheezed with pain, but when she asked what happened to him, he answered. Nael told his little sister that their father had grown overzealous, and that his wounds were from a poorly planned mission that their sire demanded of him. Eula would listen to her brother's story as she worked, doing everything she could just to stabilize him. She was a clever and learned woman, but in the end, Nael's condition was beyond her. It was beyond Garlean medicine. And soon, she watched helplessly as her older brother died before her, his blood staining her hands. This broke something within the poor girl as she screamed and wailed with grief unseen. All she ever wanted was to stand by her brother's side and keep him well. And yet, the world had denied her both of these dreams as his soul was committed to the ethereal realm. Eventually, knowledge of Nael's death would reach his lover, a woman by the name Bradamante. They were engaged to be married, but now her chosen love had departed from this life. Before leaving, Nael had gifted his betrothed a gun halberd of elegant design, a token with which to prove that she would be in his heart even on the battlefield. But upon learning of his death, Bradamante would use that weapon to impale herself, taking her own life so that she might join her would-be husband on the other side. Having also lost her future sister-in-law, Eula's anguish would eventually drive her mad, as a new desire welled up within her. If she had failed to keep her brother well, then it was her duty to give up her life in service to his name, and bring untold glory upon the title of Nael Darnis. So it was with a cold heart, Eula would put her plans into motion. When she looked upon her father, she only saw her brother's murderer, and as such, he needed to be punished. Eula would use her knowledge of medicine to assassinate her father and make it look like the man perished from a horrible disease. When the legatus of the 7th Legion died, Garlemald mourned the loss of a hero, but Eula was just getting started. She took her brother's Magitech armor and wore it in his place. With the wonders of Magitech, it was trivial to augment the sound of her voice from within the helmet, leading everyone to believe that Nael was alive and well. She even took the same gun halberd that Nael's lover had killed herself with and gave this weapon the maiden's name, Bradamante. Eula was moved by the love they shared, and as such, she wielded Bradamante, keeping the two deceased lovers together in her own way. With their father dead, the mantle of legatus fell upon the new leader of the 7th Imperial Legion, Nael von Darnis. Hidden within her brother's armor, Eula's first act as legatus was to execute her father's closest officers and personal guard, silencing anyone who might have known about Nael's fate and eventual death. With anyone who could have known about her brother's demise dead and gone, the transformation was complete. Eula Darnis was officially gone. The woman inside that ivory armor would call herself Nael von Darnis for the rest of her life, as she would make sure that nobody ever knew the truth. As the legatus of the 7th Imperial Legion, this new Nael von Darnis would resume where her brother and father had left off. She became even more brutal than her sire, securing victory after victory for the Empire regardless of the bodies and blood that it would cost. This gained the legatus a vicious reputation, as Nael von Darnis would eventually be dubbed the White Raven, since death would ever follow in his wake. But this only made Eula smile, as her brother's name gained more and more fame through her actions. But eventually, these victories would slow to a crawl as the primals being summoned by Eorzea's beast tribes were proving to be more troublesome than expected. However, House Darnus was privy to all manner of elegant secrets, and as such, the White Raven had access to all sorts of technology. This eventually brought her attention to the Meteor Project. In her madness, she saw the Meteor Project as the means with which to break the stalemate and garner her brother's name even greater fame as they destroyed the Primals. She wanted history to remember that Nael von Darnis was the man that forced the entirety of Eorzea to its knees. Unfortunately, she would get her wish, but not in the way she was expecting. Alongside the Emperor's approval, the Meteor Project was resumed, with the White Raven at its head. The legatus of the 14th Legion, Gaius von Belsar, objected to this, as it was still a mystery as to why the Meteor Project ended up destroying the entirety of Bozia's capital. But his warnings fell on deaf ears. During the project's revitalization, it's unknown when exactly things started to go wrong. But eventually, the same mistakes made in Bozia would repeat themselves. With Magitech tools, they established a connection to the Red Moon Dalamud, and unknowingly allowed the Elder Primal within a direct ethereal link to those involved. Despite being sealed, the Elder Primal Bahamut used his power to temper everyone involved with the new Meteor Project, just like he had before during those days in Bozia. Nael von Darnis, despite having dedicated their life to wiping out the threat of Primals, was now the slave of one. While no one knew that the White Raven had been tempered, the change in their behavior wasn't entirely unnoticed. For one, Gaius von Belsar saw this, noting that Nael was becoming more anxious, uneasy, and zealous with every passing day. Deep down, he knew that Nael needed to be stopped, so Gaius purposely looked the other way when adventurers moved in to attack the 7th Legion. Gaius wanted to conquer Eorzea, but Dalamud threatened to obliterate it. Through a series of dangerous missions, there were many adventurers who opposed the 7th Legion and desired to put an end to the Meteor Project, knowing full well that they would have to fight and kill the White Raven to make sure it stopped completely. After much preparation and many fights, the legatus of the 7th Imperial Legion, Nael von Darnis, would do battle with said adventurers. Their united front proved to be more capable than the tempered legatus had realized, and failure was at hand. However, with Bahamut's prison having come so close to Eorzea, Eula was granted even more power, losing her mortal form and evolving into an avatar of the Elder Primal's will. She became Nael Deus Darnis. Yet even this proved insufficient, as the White Raven was defeated all the same. But Bahamut would not release Eula, not yet. Instead of letting her soul join her beloved brother in the ethereal realm, the Primal ripped her aether apart and absorbed everything she was, creating for himself the perfect puppet. As we all know, the defeat of the White Raven did not stop the fall of Dalamud, as Bahamut had become much too powerful and was close to having complete control over the Red Moon. The rest, as we know, is history. Dalamud fell, the prison was broken, and Bahamut rampaged across Eorzea. The 7th Umbral Calamity had officially begun. It was only thanks to Louisoix Le Veilleur that the carnage was contained within Eorzea. The rest of the world was ultimately spared the same fate. However, expeditions into Dalamud's wreckage would reveal that the Elder Primal was still somewhat alive and was attempting to reform itself. Many battles were fought to keep this from happening, but one such fight was with none other than a resurrected Nael Deus Darnis, a twisted shadow of her former self. It was only after this defeat and the subsequent destruction of Bahamut's core that Eula's soul was finally set free. Yet even in her final moments, she continued to call herself by her brother's name, insisting that his glory would be everlasting. And that, my friends, is the tale of Eula Darnis. As the White Raven, she was a woman who shook the world to its core because of the death of her older brother. I've not much history on the man Nael Darnus was, but if he inspired such adoration and love from his younger sister and bride-to-be, he must have been a man of at least some decent stock. But his story was not the one that would be told. Because of his sister, his name will ever be attached to the 7th Umbral Calamity for the rest of time. Perhaps this was what Eula truly wanted, a reason for the world to remember her dear brother, even if it was out of fear and hatred. If so, she got what she wanted, and it only cost her everything. Remember this story well, my friends. Keep those you love close, keep them safe, but do not lose yourself in their absence. We are all, each of us, part of a much greater whole. Whatever tragedies befall us in this lifetime may echo into the future. So if you ever leave something behind for others to learn from, make sure it was worth it. But that will be all from me for now. So until next we meet, stay safe, my friends. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Big shout out to my patrons, Rovakis, Monsolo97, Potato, Runeteer, The Yellow Couch, Papaya, Cyan, Sage Mouse, and Volvalis Oma. If you want to see more lore content in the future, share this with your friends. My dream is to share as much as I find with as many people as possible. And if you do end up helping me, thank you so much in advance. And have a wonderful day.